I sat down with Dr. Melissa Levin, founding medical director and board-certified dermatologist at Entie Dermatology, who was on hand for the event. Check it out.
You know, I think a lot of times people see a dermatologist, they talk to a dermatologist, you think about skincare only. But I like my patients to understand that skincare is just a part of how we care for the skin. So a couple of things that I really emphasize with my patients. One is prevention. And there are things that we can do to really help prevent really serious skin conditions like skin cancer. The other thing that I like to emphasize is overall skincare maintenance. Once you have a good skincare routine, you maintain that. You want it to be appropriate. You want it to fit into your lifestyle. It doesn't have to be a 10-step routine like what we're seeing on social media. And the last thing is really early intervention for common skin concerns like acne, rosacea, eczema, psoriasis, and obviously skin cancer, sun damage. And there are many things that we can do around that. So first and foremost, I really emphasize establish with a dermatologist. Find a dermatologist that you trust, that you can actually care for with one annual skin checks, get treatment and correct diagnoses for all these different skin conditions that pop up. We are medical experts, right? We treat, we diagnose over 3,000 conditions of the skin, of the hair, of the nails, and cosmetic concerns. So it's really important to find a dermatologist. Secondly, there are things that you can do at home. So the big thing that we talk about is sun protection. And we talk about sunscreen, we talk about protective clothing, when you should go out. So there's so many different things that you can do.
You know, there's so much emphasis on the aesthetic of skincare as well. Retinol seems to be the big thing these days. You know, tell us what maybe something that we don't know, or is retinol really all it's cracked up to be?
So people love the sexy stuff. That's what I always say. People always want to do retinols. They always want to exfoliate. Retinols or retinoids are vitamin A derivatives. And they're kind of the dermatologist's kind of gold standard when we're talking about repair. And that's really focused on skincare at nighttime. So repair, rejuvenation, correcting things from stressors that we're exposed to during the daytime. Yes. Retinols and retinoids are evidence-based. We have years, decades of research, data, and science behind what they do, turning over the skin cells, repairing damage, treating hyperpigmentation, making collagen. It also is the foundation of how we treat acne. But not everyone can tolerate a retinol or a retinoid. So there are other ingredients that you can really lean on. So I'm pregnant right now, so I would never recommend a retinoid for a pregnant patient, but she could do growth factors, peptides. There's also a new kind of very popular ingredients called exosomes. So there's so many different ingredients that you can do at night that's really focused on repair. In the morning, we talk about protection. So that's every dermatologist's favorite topic, which is sunscreen.
Yeah, which leads into the fact that we are going into spring. So how do you adapt your skin regimen to the new season?
Yeah, so I always say, like, when you're taking off a layer, you should really address your skincare. So I'm not wearing a thick coat anymore. I might be changing my jacket out. This is when I should really look at my skincare routine, maybe switching out from a thicker, heavier moisturizer to something more lightweight. Definitely, if you're not doing daily SPF, with more sun exposure, you're going to be outside more. You really want to lean into that daily sunscreen application. Full protection in the morning, we often say, is not just sunscreen, it's also antioxidants. We now have great DNA repair enzymes as well that I often pair for my A+ patients. And then you might want to add a little bit of light exfoliation to kind of turn over the dead skin cells that we tend to accumulate in the winter months that can be contributing to kind of like a dull texture, dull tone to the skin, like an alpha hydroxy acid or a beta hydroxy acid. Those are kind of like the big things that I kind of tell my patients to do.
Yeah, I was reading that as far as exfoliating, using the hard surface sort of little...
The chemical, the physical exfoliants.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the best anymore, or is it?
Yeah, so, you know, back in the day, probably when we were growing up, they were really coarse, and sometimes you would DIY, make your own kind of physical exfoliant. But now we have so many great ingredients. We have many different chemical exfoliants. Alpha hydroxy acids are basically bigger molecules, so they don't penetrate deep into the skin as much. We have many different types of alpha hydroxy acids like glycolic, lactic acid, mandelic acid. So there's appropriate exfoliants for different skin types. If you're acne prone, then beta hydroxy acid, which is salicylic acid, which you see a lot in drugstore skincare, can be really helpful for the treatment of acne.